Well, we've got plenty of time here to have a conversation here with Rebecca Pemberton. So, Rebecca, she signed up for the course and took the course around the same time I did. So we're kind of falling in that same kind of maybe our graduating class, so to speak, if you want to put it that way. So we've seen lots of the changes and things that have gone on, how FDN has grown and the community has grown, the work that we're doing. So we'll have some reminiscing, I'm sure. But today on with us a spotlight, Rebecca Pemberton. She's from Georgia. And I think she's there. Rebecca, are you there?
I am. Hi, Brandon.
All right. Hi. Thanks for being on with us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yes. I think we heard your voice a little bit when we had Dr. Hover on a few months back talking about some of the things you guys are doing there, but actually good to get to hear from you and hear your story, which is pretty amazing. Once I got to kind of read through some of your bio there and history, I thought it was pretty awesome. So maybe if you can, start out a little bit with your story. You and I talked before the show, and it seems like everybody has a little bit of a story, the reason how they got to this point. We usually don't just fall into it. There's something that's going to be a catalyst to get us there. So maybe start with some of your story.
Well, I really didn't have any major health issues until I was about 18 and developed a condition that I was told was directly related to stress, and was told by the doctor at the time, I don't see this in young women. I see this in middle-aged men, and whatever changes you need to make, you need to do it. So I did, left my job, packed up, moved across country at 18, but that it was a great experience because that was my first exposure of what stress can do to a body. And a couple decades later, if you can believe that, but it started me on a journey. I started trying to be healthier then, and of course at that time it was low fat and bagels and high grain and things like that. And I really just got sicker and sicker, and but continued on. The breaking point came in the late 90s. Had a stressful job, wonderful husband, newly married, but stressful job, and got a diagnosis of fibromyalgia at a time when it was actually quite difficult, and a lot of people were being told it's all in your head and things like that. But went to the dentist, and they used to put the trays when you were lying down, they would put them on your chest, and he laid the tray down, and I almost came up out of the chair, and he said, "Is that tender?" I said, "Sure is." And he, touched a couple of the trigger points, and he said, "You need to see a rheumatologist." So I did, and just really quickly had a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, and I didn't even know what it was. But I had friends who, told me they had this pain in their body, but I really hadn't had a need to research it at the time. Wasn't really interested in health other than trying to eat a little bit better, eat healthy, something like that. But that changed the course of my life and my family's life, because I was bedridden for about 18 months with fibromyalgia, and all of the trigger points were active, and I basically got to the point where I don't think I was suicidal, because I really didn't want to die, but it was really a come to Jesus meeting, like, God, you've got to heal me or cure me. You got to take care of this, or you got to show me a way out of this. And he did. Through a friend, I went to see a naturopath, and it was an amazing experience. 2 recommendations, 2 nutritional supplements later, and 30 minutes after taking them, I was symptom-free of fibromyalgia. And that put me on this path. I thought, I've got to do what this woman is doing. There are too many people out there who think that this is a lifelong diagnosis and a lifelong disease, and you don't bounce back from this. So I went back to school, got my bachelor's in holistic nutrition. And after I got that, I have a friend who says, get a good education and then get over yourself. But I realized something was missing, and I actually did I did a health coach certification through the American Association of Christian Counselors, but there was still something missing. And in researching for my daughter, I came across functional diagnostic nutrition about testing my daughter, because we adopted 3 girls, and they were born to a drug-addicted mom. They were all exposed to meth in utero, and my baby was born addicted to it, had to withdraw. She was almost declared failure to thrive, and we didn't feel like we were getting the traction we needed with allopathic medicine. And I started researching on my own, found functional diagnostic nutrition, and that was the missing piece for me, because a bachelor's in holistic nutrition, there's a lot of theory, but there's not a lot of practical advice and tools and things like that. And that's what FDN provided to me, was the tools to actually find out what's going on, being a health detective, and determining a plan of action and going from there. So it was amazing. You know, the CMTA certification, that was huge for me after learning my metabolic type. And so we implemented in our family. And, you know, so now we adopted our daughter 7 years ago, and now I have 3 little girls who know their metabolic type. They can tell if they're eating too many carbs. They kind of keep an eye on their ratios. They exercise. They can tell if something doesn't agree with them. And now, you know, they're 7, 10, and 12. And it's changed their life. You know, we have 3 little girls. Our middle daughter has the most challenges. She has been diagnosed with sensory processing disorder, ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, seizures, and sociopathic tendencies. She didn't bond with anyone during that critical developmental period before she was 3 years old. And when she came to us, she was unintelligible. She was basically the Tasmanian devil, dressed up as a cute little girl. But it was a ride, let me tell you. And we were actually told by a social worker, don't be surprised if she is not so developmentally delayed that she cannot function. You know, and this child is now AB honor roll. She's reading several grades above her grade level. She was closed in, and probably if we had gone a different direction, she would have been very easily placed on the autism spectrum. But at the time, we weren't. There wasn't a streamlined or consistent pathway there in the different professionals that she was seeing. But now, looking back, she would have easily been, I think, put on the spectrum because of all of her issues. But working with Dr. Haver, you know, which was a godsend, doing an internship there, we put her on some nutritional. I'd already been working with her according to FDN, but interning with Dr. Haver and adding some of the homeopathic remedies, this child went from, in just a few months, went from being totally closed in on herself and not understanding the world around her very much at all, and being unable to control her body movements and things like that with the involuntary twitches and things. She went from that to looking outward and actually making comments and saying, Mommy, what does that sign mean? And what does that mean? And I don't understand that. What does that mean? She was, 8.5, 9 before she reached the point where she could actually take in her environment and her world around her and realize that she didn't know what these things meant. But the biggest deal for her and for our family was that she could not connect emotionally to anyone. People were objects and they weren't people. But after the treatment with the homeopathic remedies, she started, and she could not stand to be hugged. We would, try to show her affection, try to hold her in our lap and love on her and things like that. But it was too much sensory stimulation, and she would just basically fight it. So I think it was about 4 months of treatment, maybe 5 months of treatment. This child who had never connected to anyone emotionally started coming to us and asking, can I have a loving? That's what we call it at our house. Can I get a loving? And she started coming to us, holding her arms up to us and asking to be hugged and asking to be loved on, and actually started showing emotion. And her emotions were being touched, but she didn't know what it was. She would get her feelings hurt, and she didn't understand it. Or someone would say something, we would have to explain sarcasm to her. But that's how closed off she had been, and now she is. she's 10, but emotionally she's a lot younger than that. But she's trying out all these different emotions and trying to figure out life, and it's amazing and it's harrowing at the same time. We're like, this is amazing that you're going through this, but you need to understand this. This is an emotion usually that toddlers feel. So, but we do have a team of people we work with. Their pediatrician, who is amazing for an allopathic pediatrician, and she actually lets me treat homeopathically in her exam room. And then they do see mental health professional. Just they're adopted and their issues and things like that. We had them diagnosed at a local university here, and we were told by the team doctor, there were a team of 5 doctors and professionals who evaluated our daughters, and we were told, we don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because we don't see children thriving the way your children are thriving when they come from the background that your children come from. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Now, they weren't necessarily interested in what I was doing, but they could not believe that my children, when you see the medical reports, the history of my children, and you see my children in person, they don't match at all. We have 3 beautiful, bright, funny girls, smart. They're just, I call it my 3-ring estrogen-fueled circus, but they are so just wonderfully engaging and loving, and it's been quite the journey, but it has changed. It's allowed me to be the mom I need to be for them and the advocate I need to be for them, and it has changed their life. My youngest, who's now 7, she was born addicted to meth and had to detox and things like that. When we received the girls, she was almost 9 months old, wearing size 0 to 3 month clothes, and had never been fed anything other than formula in 9 months. She was still so very, very tiny, and formula, for crying out loud, that just killed me. But so super tiny. She was almost declared failure to thrive. I think she lacked 1 criteria from being declared failure to thrive. And we started working with her with nutritional supplements and homeopathics and things like that. And she was, there was the drug addiction, the detox from that. She actually had hemiasymmetry, which is 1/2 of her body was smaller, noticeably smaller than the other half of her body. And in July of, I think, year before last, I would have to look, I think it was year before last, she was declared she no longer had hemiasymmetry. And we believe that was a combination of, God healing her and the things that we've done for her health as well. But my oldest, she's now 12, and that's really fun, having 2 ladies in the house, and, that all the emotional roller coaster that goes with, an upcoming teen.
I have an 11-year-old, so I get that. Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm telling you, with homeopathics, she can tell. My 12-year-old will come to me and say, "Mommy, I feel like I need some of this remedy." I was like, "Well, let's get you some of this remedy," and everything just chills out. So, but empowering them that they know. We use a variety of things, but working on my doctorate toward integrative homeopathy, I tend to lean that way more than anything. The nutritional support, we need it and things like that. But I personally think every home should have a homeopathy kit in it. So, and that's probably more than you wanted to hear, but
no, that was amazing. That was and I several points I was taking away from that, but one of them was I just thought, if you had quit when you were at your worst, what would happen to those girls? And
exactly.
you wouldn't have the knowledge and the ripple effect. And I think that's what we take. I think we all kind of realize this, but it's good to kind of highlight it, is the ripple effect of your decisions and what you do and what you learn and what you can pass on to others. As you guys become practitioners, or if you're already doing this work, you're already seeing that. It's that, I made this decision, I told this person about this. Maybe they didn't necessarily do it themselves, but they told somebody else. And that just keeps rolling, and all of a sudden you hear these stories come back to you of this, I was helped by you, and look at the change that's happened. And we always, it's nice when we get to see it. We don't always, but I think we just keep putting that out there, and it's amazing the lives and things that we're going to be able to touch with what we do.
Most definitely. In fact, Brandon, I had finished, I graduated in 2011. We adopted our daughters in December of 2010, and I was not looking to practice FDN. I had taken the course. It was great. We adopted our daughters, and it was a full-time job at that point. And out of the blue, I was waiting for the bus one afternoon to pick them up, and my phone rang. And I got a call from a guy in Kansas, I think. And he said, hey, you're the closest FDN to me. It was Oklahoma. You're the closest FDN to me, and I want to work with you. And I said, well, I'm really not practicing right now, but I can try to put you in touch with another FDN. And he said, no, you're the closest one. I said, I'm not really set up to practice. I'm just not ready yet. And he said, well, get ready, because I'm going to work with you. And I thought, well, okay. So I got ready, and it's too funny because I didn't have a website. I didn't have anything at this point. I couldn't take credit cards. And so I get everything ready, and he wound up not working with me. He went in a different direction, but he sent me his mother and his sister. So I worked with his mother and his sister for a while, and then and that was in 2011, 2012. And then, life goes on. They graduate. They get healthier. If they need to come back, fine. We'll deal with the crisis or get you back on track. Well, this past December, 9 o'clock on a Sunday night, my phone rings. It's this guy. He had kept my number all these years. And, of course, his mom and his sister had it. But he called me and he said, my girlfriend is not doing well. And I've talked to a couple of people, but I wanted to call you and get your input and see what can we do to help her. And I laughed and I said, well, you and I never worked together. And he said, I know, but I think you can help my girlfriend. So come to find out, he now lives in the Atlanta area. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you, I'm interning at this clinic, and I think the best thing you can do is get her out to this clinic. Let's run some tests and see what we can do. So the girlfriend comes out there, and I'm hearing all these wonderful things about myself from a guy that I've never worked with, from his girlfriend. And and it's so nice to be able to test people and let them know, I know you feel really. I know you think this is a big deal and your health is a big deal, but we can work on this and you're going to be feeling better. So she does, her protocol from the clinic and things like that. And a month or so later, the front desk lets me know, hey, Rebecca, one of your clients is coming in. And I said, no, I haven't sent anyone in recently. Yeah, it's this guy. He's coming in. So after, from 2010, 2011, until 2017, I finally meet the first guy who ever called me for FDN, and we had a conversation similar to what you and I had about being on a journey, and, he was like, I finally get to meet you in person, but the things that we found at the clinic and helping his girlfriend, and she said, I think he needs to come out here too, so I'm going to encourage him to do that. So, and now we're working with him in the clinic, but it is truly an amazing thing to see, and just the opportunity, Brandon, that I've been afforded working with Dr. Hover has been amazing. I have such, the brain crushes I have, Reed, Dr. Hover, different ones, things like that. But God has been good. And I wasn't even supposed to intern at this clinic. It was all set up. I was supposed to be like 40, 50 miles away with a naturopath that I had actually been her client. And when it came time for me to do my internship, I called her and I was like, well, it's that time. We've talked about it, and everything was supposed to be a go. And some things had changed in her life with her business life. And she was like, oh, Rebecca, I'm not going to be able to do this. I was like, you know what? We'll give it to God. There's a reason for everything. And in the meantime, we wound up selling our house, moving about an hour away from where we lived. And come to find out, a friend of mine had said, a couple of years ago, I told you about this tribe that met at my hotel, had their conference at my hotel. That's your tribe, Rebecca. You need to find them. So she actually remembered the organization, and it was the AONH. And I looked them up, made contact, and it was Dr. Hover, and I met them. They've never had an intern before, but apparently I convinced them they couldn't have me as an intern. So I've been there. January was a year that I've been there, so I've been there a year, 4 months. And it is just amazing, the world that it has opened up. When you meet visionaries in the field and people who are doing such amazing things, I felt like a kid in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory when I walked in, and come to find out this is a company that their products are in our dispensary, in the full script dispensary. So I'm just amazed at where I've been led, and being able to be mentored by Dr. Hover and seeing the things that I've seen, that the patient stories there, and that other people would consider miraculous. And Dr. Hover just kind of shrugs, and he's like, yeah, this is what happens here.
It's every day, right?
Exactly. It's no big deal. It's just no big deal. And I'm trying not to gawk and, squeal like a little girl. And so it's just amazing. But I feel very, very blessed to be able to do
great.
this.
What results is what we're after. And that's what I seem like you said, you mentioned that, the FDN course, one thing you got from that there's a lot of theory, a lot of academic type things, and knowledge is good, but it's tools and actually getting results. So, I think between FDN, working with Dr. Hover, that's what you're seeing. It's all, to me, that's what it's about. Lives that we're changing, things are improving. It's not just, it's great to study and learn, that's all neat stuff too, but find some practical application to it. So it sounds like that's right where you're at right now.
Yes, and along with the internship with Dr. Hover, I do intern 1 day a week with a classical homeopath, and that has been amazing. We just recently had the Joint American Homeopathic Conference here in Atlanta, and to be able to meet some of the authors of my textbooks, that was amazing. And when you talk with these practitioners and hear the case studies of how they are changing lives, I tell you, I would encourage every FDN. FDN is amazing. It is foundational, and it will absolutely, I've actually referred several people to the course, and actually a lot of my clients, I find this comical, because a lot of my clients say, I want to do what you do. What you do is amazing, and I want to do what you do. And I think that, me personally, I think there should be, we should be like chiropractors. There should be an FDN in every shopping center in the suburbs, everywhere. But so several of my clients have actually gone on to do the FDN class, and they've gone in different directions and things like that. One's gotten the Weston A. Price Nourishing Traditions thing, that resonated with her, and all of this fits. It's very complementary. So I have one who actually called out of the blue, and I just sent her to the clinic because I don't have time right now to take on anything else. But we've developed a relationship, and we're Facebook friends and everything, and just sort of mentoring her when I can. And in doing this, she's like, what do I do? She said, I'm like a race car. Just point me in the right direction and I'll go. So I'm, making recommendations for courses for her to take, and she is absolutely going to be a game changer because she has such enthusiasm. She's in her 20s. I'm 51, My motivation is a little bit different now, and she's just burned things up with all of her energy and do amazing things. But again, here is a young mother who is going to change her family's life and her circle of influence by the knowledge that she gains. And that's how I see myself, not so much as a practitioner, but as an educator and a resource. And that's worked really well for me, being a health coach and being a resource. So thankfully, I have a husband who supports me and loves having a lifelong learner for a wife.
I noticed that you wrote in here that in the beginning he wasn't so on board with things, but came around pretty quickly, though, so good for him.
Yes.
I don't know if he actually had a choice, but...
Oh, he did. Yeah, after you've been married 21 years, at that point I think maybe 14, 15 years, you kind of learn each other, and you realize, you don't get married to change each other. Marriage changes you, but, it doesn't work if you try to change the other person. So, but he's always been very supportive. He just said, yeah, go follow, find your bliss, find your dream, just don't expect me to believe it. And coming from an analytical person, very scientific mind and things like that, he had his experience, and now I have to tell him, do not tell anybody about it. Don't send me another person. I don't have time. Don't. So, but he will. My entire family, my 7-year-old, a little kid fell on the playground, and my 7-year-old sent them to the office and told them to ask for arnica. And I get a phone call from the front office, Ms. Pemberton, what is arnica? And I was like, well, I said, did somebody fall? Somebody get hurt? It's for trauma, bruising. And she's like, yeah, some little kid came up here. Alexis told him to come up here and get arnica, and we don't know who that is or what that is. So, my entire family stands still long enough, and they'll diagnose you and give you a remedy.
That's great. You're on the right path then. It's about replication. I think that's one of our mission statements, educating others, or working on others so you can educate others to continue to do this process. It's about spreading the word and then understanding, and to whatever level people are going to accept it. So, yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing, spreading the word.
Most definitely. And something I think, I've just had this realization not too long ago, had this thought that, being health and wellness is the same for every individual. Every individual is not going to run marathons. They're not going to. They're not looking to be Miss Universe or Mr. Universe or whatever those body lifting things are called or whatever. But health and wellness for a person with a genetic condition or who's been seriously injured. Health and wellness for that individual could be very different. And, some people are genetically not going to go lift weights or run marathons or, try to be a triathlete. Health and wellness to the person who is compromised genetically or something like that, we can mitigate some of that damage and, make sure the genes don't express fully in a negative way. But sometimes health and wellness just means being able to live your life and not be in pain when pain is expected, or to not have the mental health issues that your relatives may have, that you have bypassed that or you've mitigated that. So health and wellness can have a lot. Sometimes it could just mean having a peaceful home life that you enjoy and that you're not stressed out all the time. So there are so many different definitions for an individual's health and wellness. We don't all have to look like fitness models, because I don't. But, I think I mentioned before, Kaiser Permanente is asking me to donate my DNA because someone for my age with my genetic condition, they don't understand. I'm not in pain. I'm not walking with a cane or a wheelchair or a walker. and I'm not bedridden, and I've only had just a couple of surgeries that they didn't connect at the time to this condition, but I'm not in pain at all, and that is very rare. And if I was not intentional with my dress protocol and the homeopathics, there is no way that I could be functioning the way I am to the degree that I am without pain and without joint stabilizing DME, durable medical equipment, and things like that. So, I want people to understand that we're not all going to be fitness models. We're going to find our level of health and wellness.
Exactly right. That's talking about goals, what the goal is, what they want to do. Exactly. The genetic condition, maybe take a couple minutes and tell, if you would, a little bit about the particular condition there, and then some of the things, again, you're kind of doing. We talked a little bit about your schedule, everything that you're able to accomplish and do. Maybe just kind of brag on, you're bragging on the address program and everything you're doing, but a little on yourself about how you've been able to overcome so many of these things.
Well, 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos, and actually all of the talk in the groups, MTHFR and things like that, is what put me on this little rabbit trail that I had to look up. And I was like, I actually wanted to see a geneticist to see if I had MTHFR, and they don't really test for that. A geneticist is not where you go for that. But in talking, there was some family reunion or something, and I'm talking to my cousins and my aunts, and come to find out we all have these same symptoms. And we've just always thought we were clumsy. And I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, okay, what I know about miasms homeopathically, this is a genetic issue. So let me, and I went to my doctor, my regular primary practitioner, and I said, look, I fit the criteria for this, but I have to go through a doctor to make it official. And she, of course, they had no idea. They'd never heard of Ehlers-Danlos. And but she did tell me, she said, every time you come in here, we have such a great time. You're making us laugh and you're educating us. And we always have to leave the room and go Google what you're telling us to see what it is. And she said, you're one of the most fun patients I have. So, but she sent me on to Emory Genetics, and again, very easy diagnosis of Ehlers-Danlos there. But Ehlers-Danlos, the form that I have, there are several different forms, but the form that I have is literally my collagen is not like other people's collagen. And you can hear it described in the different groups. We have very bendy joints and joint instability and pain. Those are the two main things, which if you recall the diagnosis of fibromyalgia, it was probably more than likely Ehlers-Danlos. It just manifested as fibro. So, but I went to see a rheumatologist and then a geneticist, a rheumatologist, and now I do see a primary care physician just because they want to, I go once or twice a year. They just check on everything and make sure everything's fine. And they're like, we really don't have to do anything for you because I'm taking care of it myself. But I do, again, supplements. I have things that make me sleep better. I can move a certain way, and my body doesn't always do what it's supposed to do. It could be very painful. So I have to be very intentional about the way I move, the way I exercise, and things like that. But to be 51 and, my day, just to give you a picture of my day, is I wake up between 5:30 and 5:45 without an alarm. I get my children off to school. My husband and I do that together, get my children off to school. I'm interning 2 days a week in the clinic. I intern 1 day a week with a classical homeopath. I have Sundays and Fridays off, and that's when I do everything else that I have to do, work in my church, see clients as I need to. I volunteer. I'm co-PTO president at one of my daughter's schools. I volunteer at the other school, hospitality director at our church, and things like that. So stay pretty busy. Get to bed usually between 10:30 and 12. I try to keep it at 11, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And I love my stationary bike. I have a desk on it. I bike anywhere between 25 and 100 miles a week because exercise is so important, but I'm very limited in what I can do with exercise without injuring myself. And we travel, and this upcoming year we're going to be homeschooling the girls, but we are hiring someone to do that because I literally cannot do everything. But
how are you going to fit that in?
But they're kind of amazed, and that's one of the reasons I keep getting these letters and emails. We'd really like you to donate your DNA for us to study. I'm thinking, I don't know. I've seen there's a movie about that somewhere, right? I don't know that I want that. But maybe, when things calm down. But I believe it is fully the FDN principles and homeopathy is what's done it. The metabolic typing, that is so huge for people.
All of it together, exactly. Metabolic typing was big for me. I was eating totally wrong for my metabolic type, and the first time I had realized I was really a true protein type, very strong, fast oxidizer, it was like, wow, I feel alive again. I've been missing this for years now, doing what I was supposed to do, and it's like it's a game changer. Totally. Everybody needs to know their metabolic type and work through that and be aware, just like your daughters, like you're talking about. Our daughter's the same way. She's very much aware of her body and knows when something's not quite right. She'll ask for the right things, and she's aware of the food and how it affects her body. So it's about self-awareness so much. That's what I feel like one of the biggest things we can do with people is help them to learn how to be self-aware and listen for cues from the body, and so they can be their own best practitioner. I guess that's kind of the goal there, is to make them where they're independent some way from us. They know how to do these things. That's kind of the goal. It's not to keep them around for 20 years. It's to teach them and empower them.
Exactly. I tell my clients, if we're still working consistently together after a year and a half, something's wrong somewhere, because my goal is to be an educator and to empower you. And one of the things that I really loved about the life coaching and the health and wellness coaching certification was to be able to help people make that connection that no matter what the health challenge is, if you address it physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, more than likely you're going to overcome that challenge. And you're going to be able to go on to the next challenge and address it successfully. And in teaching people, physically, learning to listen to yourself, learning how your body operates, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, the greatest thing that I can teach someone is to tune into their body and to use muscle testing. It blows people's minds when I tell them you shouldn't be on the same supplements day in and day out for the rest of your life. Your body needs change. So to be able to give them a tool to help them test whether they need something or not, that's one of the greatest things I can do for them. And the various certifications, I would encourage any FDN. I absolutely adore FDN. It's foundational. It gives us so many tools. But there are other certifications. I'm also a nutritional therapist, a holistic health practitioner. I did finish the naturopath, things like that, and now I'm working on cognitive behavioral therapy, and things like that, and miasms in homeopathy, which that's really exciting to me, miasms in homeopathy. But I would encourage FDNs to, not just think that even though, FDN is all that in a bag of chips, it's not the end all. You need to continue to grow and educate yourself, because not only you're going to improve your tool belt, you're going to increase the amount of tools that you have to use, but your paths are going to cross with amazing people who broaden your horizons. And the better you are, the more you know, the more people you can help, and the better practitioner you're going to be. So I would encourage them to get, other, and it fits right in with the educational requirements of FDN. It's a win-win for everyone, really. But is it okay to talk about homeopathic miasms?
Sure. Actually, I'd like you to think we've got enough time. It's actually something that homeopathy is something that actually, I think I got into just as far as just learning from people and trying some of the remedies, years ago. And I think you're right. It does fit in with the whole thing because it's kind of in the supplement side. It's also in the stress reduction. FDN leaves room for other methods and other practitioners and methods for sure. That's kind of what we have to think about is that, we've got to have a network of people we can refer to and other things, options to try, that you have something else you can give if things aren't moving along like we want, we have to have some options there. So, I'd be happy for you to talk about that.
Great. I actually had not had my miasm class when I started interning with Dr. Haver, and I'd been there I think my first week, and I called my advisor in a quiet panic, and I said, oh, dear God, I am in so much trouble. These people are not practicing homeopathy. I don't know what they're doing, but this is not homeopathy. And she said, well, what are they doing? And I told her, and she said, oh, no, you're in a fantastic place. That's amazing that you have an internship there. So it kind of blew me away. The clinic, and I still haven't had my miasm class, but it's an advanced class, but the clinic works a lot with miasms. And I had read about them and have an understanding of them, but just had not really delved into it very much. And basically a miasm is an energetic taint on DNA, and it's usually passed down through the generations, and the further it gets from the original individual, it magnifies and sort of gets worse. Usually it is from a sexually transmitted disease that was probably never properly treated. And people freak out when you tell them they have the syphilinum miasm or the psychosis miasm or something like that. But you have to realize hygiene has not always been what it is now, and that there have been several world wars fought, and, guys would go off and maybe bring home something that they didn't plan on bringing home. So it's, not saying that an individual at the present time has an active case of any of these, or even the tuberculinum miasm. There are people who just always have lung issues or breathing issues, and this is the tuberculinum miasm. It's an underlying genetic taint that literally will not let their cells function as well as their cells could function if this was removed. And the dealing with the miasm is actually very convenient and easy. You treat with a homeopathic remedy, and a lot of issues that people have, usually they show mental health, physical health, things like that, emotional health, and all of a sudden they just feel like, oh, I feel so much better, or something shifted or something changed. And literally treating with that miasm remedy sort of removes that. And I mean, it's an energetic thing. There's actually an article that came the closest to describing a miasm that I've ever seen outside of homeopathy, and I believe it was in Science magazine. I could provide the link to you, but it talked about how in utero, what the emotions that's going on with the mother and the health of the mother literally leaves a stamp on the DNA of a stamp, for lack of a better word, but leaves an impression on the DNA of the child, and that's carried forward. And that was the best article about miasms that I'd ever seen. I thought, this is explaining miasms so most people can understand it. But they are treatable, and when they're treated, they like to, as a clinic, they like to take care of miasms fairly early because they just affect everything in the body. And then everything starts working better. The body systems start working the way they're supposed to. And it's sort of like putting a governor on your DNA, that your cells don't work the way they're supposed to. And like a governor on a car, it can only go so fast. You remove that, and then that car can go as fast as it needs to go, that you want it to go. And one of the, for my middle daughter, we worked with miasm remedies, And that is what her progress leapt forward, oh my goodness, by years. And in just a few months, to have a child that's closed off and couldn't relate to people and using homeopathic miasm remedies, and she is coming to us seeking affection and attention and looking outward at the world around her. It was because of the miasm remedies. And all three of my girls had the same remedy. Well, given the history of, we call her tummy mummy, the bio mom, given the history of tummy mummy, we weren't surprised when we found out what the miasm was. But in treating my daughter, their ADD improved, some of their emotional issues improved, just so many things. But the biggest change came with my daughter, who has just the ABCs of diagnoses. She's like a what is that soup with all the letters in it? But just so many diagnoses. Yes, she's an alphabet soup, and we saw the greatest progress in her over about a 3 or 4 month period of time. So, and that's when I see people, especially in the forums, and you probably see me a lot. Homeopathy would help with that. There's a remedy for that, things like that. And it's my love. I do absolutely love it. But when I see people who they get to a certain point and they're just stuck, that's when, I think of miasms first. But for other people who may not, be studying homeopathy or practicing it with a practitioner, if someone is stuck and they're just not moving forward, time to look at miasms and address miasms, and you may find that they move forward from that point on.
I'm glad you talked about this, because there may be somebody out there that's dealing with a little stuck situation, and maybe they need to look that direction. We've used homeopathics off and on for years. I'm actually doing one for viruses right now, and I think it's been helpful to me. So it definitely falls within the scope of FDN. It's very powerful, and the whole history of homeopathy is amazing if you get into that whole side of things, of how things deviated and still kind of accepted, and you actually can make claims on homeopathic remedies, which is a pretty amazing thing in itself. So definitely something to think about and kind of keep in the radar there. You're right. If things aren't working, other things aren't clicking, just not making that progress, we have to think outside the box a little bit. Very good.
Yes.
Very good.
And with homeopathy, one of the foundational principles in looking for symptoms, if there are emotional issues that are just out of control, think homeopathy. Those are key. But one of the beautiful things I love about homeopathy, one of the little acronyms we use is PQRS, and it's peculiar, queer, rare, and strange. These symptoms that are, peculiar, rare, queer, and strange, or peculiar, queer, rare, and strange, I got my alphabet mixed up. These are the things that point to specific remedies. And when you get the correct remedy and it fits the symptom picture, it is an amazing, beautiful thing. And a lot of people, I think the doubting or questioning, the skepticism with homeopathy, I personally believe it comes from not having the correct remedy. Because if you do not have the correct remedy, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to harm the person unless they keep taking it and they prove the remedy. But if you find the simillimum, the remedy that matches that picture, you will see amazing results. I've seen it. We use it, and it's just a part of our lives. But when you can take a child who has conjunctivitis, or pink eye as it's commonly known, and you give them 2 or 3 doses of a homeopathic remedy, and in a day conjunctivitis is gone, then, and for strep and so many things, I had one little girl visiting, having a play date with my youngest, and she had severe food intolerances. Well, kids being kids that they are, and my little adventurer, she wanted to share something with her friend, and Mommy wasn't around, so the friend wasn't going to, turn it down, and she had a snack and put everybody down for bed, and we are awakened by this blood-curdling scream. And I was just, oh, dear God, somebody's being murdered in my home. So I get up, and it's this little, my daughter's friend, and she is clutching her belly, screaming, and I mean just blood-curdling scream. And I know her parents, they're out of state. I can't get to them. And I'm like, honey, talk to me. She was red in the face, screaming, her stomach killing her and things like that. And I was like, there's no way I can get to the parents, And I finally got it from my daughter, who was scared to death. She didn't know what was going on. I was like, honey, did she eat something that she's not supposed to have? And she had. But based on her pain, the red face, the screaming, the drama, all of this, I gave her 1 dose of belladonna. And in 15 minutes, that child was asleep. Sleep. From blood-curdling, somebody's being murdered, wow, to asleep. So, and thankfully, we all, eventually, my stress hormones calmed down, and we were all able to go back to sleep. But the mom, wow, came back into town, and I shared it with her. I was like, look, she ate something she wasn't supposed to, but this is how I treated it. She's fine. They played the next day, no problem. And, I mean, now this mom believes in homeopathy and uses it, and that's a beautiful thing to me. So I think everyone should have a homeopathic first aid kit at home.
There you go. Very good. Good idea. We do. We do here. So tremendous. Well, we're getting down to the kind of the end of the call here, about 5 minutes or so left. I thought maybe if you wanted to, maybe talk about just some things as far as, I don't know, any kind of business or marketing or client management tips, anything you can kind of think for FDNs out there, people going through the course, have graduated, maybe a few more things that you've learned in any of those areas. Maybe you've thrown out a few tips here in our concluding moments.
Well, gosh, Brandon, I don't know, because people find me. I don't market. I don't market at all. So
okay.
I'm only listed on FDN. Whatever the website there is, I'm listed there. I do now have a website because I paid for it and built it, for however many years. I rarely post things on my Facebook, but being in the groups, to me, finding your tribe. My tribe are women in their transitional years, women, period. When you think about women with their hormones, when they begin menses through menopause, and things like that, that's a lot of years to cover. And I've been through all of it, but I can relate to them. Find your niche. People are going to find you. The groups online, if they're, I'm in the Ehlers-Danlos groups, things like that. I'm in the homeopathy groups. And just recently, I just believe putting it out there, being a resource, and, I pray, God, who am I supposed to help today? Orchestrate my path. Who am I supposed to run into, and who do I help? And they just appear. I have more. I juggle clients, but and I don't have, I'm not working with a lot at any one time just because I don't have the time, but the people find me. And I do believe, there are some amazing people, FDNs, I've learned things from, the ones who are building a practice and things like that. And eventually I'll get to the place where hopefully I have my own practice clinic or whatever, a standalone. But right now I work with the people that come to me, and I'm in awe of the people who develop a marketing plan and go after it gangbusters. That's amazing that they can do that from my point of view. But having the tools that you need, being flexible and working with people and not devaluing yourself, believing that you are worth everything, that you've put a lot of time and energy into your education and maintaining credentials and education, and just putting it out there and being available.
Good word. That's good. Very good. So I agree. Don't undervalue what you have to offer people. I think that's something I hear not as often, I think, as I used to with graduates, but wondering is, can I really charge that much? Can I really have the skills to do this? If you've been through the FDN course and you've been through some things yourself, you can and you should. and people will thank you for it. They won't be looking at you like you're stealing something from them. They're going to just thank you, and you're going to have these awesome relationships like you're talking about, and just put it out there and do it. I agree. So.
Yeah. Well, and one of my clients, and I am much more on top of this now because I'll help anyone. But, I've told people, look, I am very careful with my time. I have a lot going on. I don't have time to work with someone who's not going to be compliant. I'm not going to fight with you. And these are my rules. And if you can live with this, I will help you, and we will educate you and help you be the best person you can be for your health. But can you do this? And I've seen some other practitioners who weed out as well, whether they're going to be a good fit. And I would encourage practitioners to do that. You're not going to click with everyone. You're not going to resonate. Your message is not going to resonate. But go where you're celebrated. Be a blessing where you can be a blessing. And I think God will take care of the rest. Maybe it's simplistic of me, but I'm a fairly simple person. I just he hasn't let me down yet. So.
That's great. Well, Rebecca, it's been great having you on here. It's been a very enlightening conversation, and hearing your story and with your own health, with your daughters, everything you're doing, and working with Dr. Hover, it just seems like a great life you've got going there, and just we salute you for what you're doing, and just thanks for being on and telling us about this, and encourage everyone here, and hope to have you on again and stay connected with you. So thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, and I am just such a big fan of Reed and what he has accomplished with FDN, the community he has built. Such a brain crush on Reed Davis. I just love him to pieces. He's a great guy, and if people could really buy into Reed and get Reed, those are the FDNs that I see thriving. Those are the ones I see thriving, and so I just big props to Reed. Love him to death. And thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it.
Sure. Happy to do it. Thanks for being on. You guys all have a good weekend, and we'll see you back here next week. We've got a special guest coming on, so we'll have an announcement about that real soon. And you guys tune in next week. Again, you guys have a great weekend. Talk with you later. Bye-bye.